Alexander Twilight. Alexander Lucius Twilight, September 23, 1795, June 19, 1857, was an American educator, minister and politician. He is the first African American man known to have earned a bachelor's degree from an American college or university, graduating from Middlebury College in 1823. He was licensed as a congregational preacher and worked in education and ministry all his career. In 1829, Twilight became principal of the Orleans County Grammar School. There he designed and built Athenian Hall, the first granite public building in the state of Vermont. In 1836 he was the first African American elected as a state legislator, serving in the Vermont House of Representatives. He was also the only African American ever elected to a state legislature before the Civil War. His house and Athenian Hall are included in the Brownington Village Historic District, listed on the National Register of Historic Places, NRHP. African American roots. Alexander's father, Ichabod, was born in Boston, July 1765. Ichabod's father was black, his mother, white, possibly an indentured servant. Eventually, Ichabod married Mary, described as white or light-skinned, implying she was of partial African descent. Ichabod and Mary were free and mixed race, of African and English descent. It is unknown if they were born free. They were likely descendants of African slaves and English ancestors. Ichabod was a Revolutionary War veteran from New Hampshire. His parents were both listed in the Corinth town history as the first Negroes to settle in Corinth, where they bought property, moving from Bradford on November 28, 1798. Early life and education. Alexander Lucius Twilight was born September 23, 1795, in Bradford, Vermont. Starting around 1802 when he was 8 years old, Twilight worked for a neighboring farmer in Corinth. Working from an early age was typical of working-class children of his era. For the next 12 years he read, studied, and learned mathematics while working in various farm labor positions. Twilight enrolled in Randolph's Orange County Grammar School in 1815 at the age of 20. From 1815 to 1821, he completed all the institution's secondary school courses as well as the first 2 years of a college-level curriculum. He enrolled in Middlebury College in 1821, where he graduated in 1823 with a Bachelor of Arts degree. He was the first known African American to receive a degree from an American institution of higher learning. This did not become widely known until 1826, when Amherst College awarded a bachelor's degree to Edward Jones and claimed that he was the first African American college graduate, which prompted Middlebury College to publicize Twilight's earlier graduation. Career. His first job was teaching in Peru, New York. Twilight also studied for the ministry with the Congregational Church and served several congregational churches. He occasionally led worship services and delivered sermons. The Champlain Presbytery of Plattsburgh licensed him to preach. Twilight taught for 4 years in Peru, then moved to Vergennes, Vermont, in 1828 to teach during the week and hold weekend church services in Waltham and Ferrisburgh. In 1829 Twilight was hired as principal of the Orleans County, Vermont, Grammar School in Brownington, the only secondary school in a 2-county area. He also served as minister of the Congregational Church. He built a house for his family shortly after arrival, which still stands and is the headquarters of the Orleans County Historical Society. Wanting to create a residence dormitory to accommodate out-of-town students, from 1834 to 1836 Twilight designed, raised funds for, and had built a massive 4-story granite building which he called Athenian Hall. The first granite public building in Vermont, it served as a dormitory for the coeducational school, also known as the Brownington Academy. Both his home and Athenian Hall are today part of a historic district listed on the National Register of Historic Places. In 1836, Twilight was elected to the Vermont House of Representatives, becoming the first African American to be elected to a state legislature. As a member of the House, he worked unsuccessfully to persuade the Vermont General Assembly not to divide between Brownington and nearby Craftsbury, which had decided to open its own school. He left his job as headmaster in 1847, apparently after a falling out with the Brownington School's trustees. He taught school in Shipton and Hatley, Quebec. Without Twilight's leadership, the school in Brownington experienced declining enrollment, and it was closed in 1852. Persuaded to return to Brownington, Twilight resumed his duties as principal and pastor. He resigned as pastor in 1853, and continued as principal until 1855. Death and burial. In October 1855, Twilight suffered a stroke which left him partially paralyzed and caused him to retire as principal of the Brownington School. He died on June 19, 1857, and was buried at the Congregational Church in Brownington. Marriage and family. In 1826, Twilight married Mercy Ladd Merrill of Unity, New Hampshire. They remained married until his death, and had no children. Mercy Twilight died in 1878. Legacy and honors. Footnotes. Further reading. External links. Further reading.